All right, what's going on out there, folks? Rooster here in Tennessee. Palomar Deluxe, Power Deluxe 35A, commonly called Palomar 500. If you're interested in this item, shoot me a text, 423-299-3535. We're going to test it out here today and make sure everything's good to go with it. If there's something wrong with it, we'll also see that. Going to test it with my Connex, and if you guys want to hear a, I don't know, maybe interesting story, maybe not interesting, but if you want to hear a little backstory about my experience with one of these early on when I was first getting into radio, then hang around to the end of the video, and I'll waste a little bit of your time telling that story. But first things first, let's get the output test, functionality test out of the way, and go from there. So the preamp does not work, okay? Letting you know that up front. Preamp has no effect. It doesn't kill the receive, but it doesn't help it. So it's possible it's just unhooked. Or the switch is bad. The preamp may be good, but the switch is definitely bad. So that's a possibility. Anyway, just letting you guys know that. Let's test the output of it here. We've got the 1,000-watt slug in the meter. We are on peak right now. We've already got the peak kit turned on. Let's go to low power first. Audio, check 1, 2, 3. Audio, check 1, 2, 3. About a little bit over 300. Medium, audio, check 1, 2, 3. Audio, check 1, 2, 3. Basically the same. And then high. Audio, check 1, 2, 3. Bottom scale. Audio, check 1, 2, 3. Audio, check 1, 2, 3. Audio. About 375, 370. And let's, just for the kicks of it, go to average power for high and see how much it does average for those wondering. Audio. Hello, audio. About 150, 160 average. So that's what this one does. That's kind of mild for one of these. I wouldn't say low. I have seen them do as low as 350, but I have seen them do as much as 550. So they come out with two different kinds of transistors in them. Some of them had 1446s, and some of them had 455s. Either way, they've got four of them. It's a 4-pill, 4-transistor amp. So 455 ones do a little bit less, 1446 ones do a little bit more. Another thing that can determine how much these things do, some people like to turn the voltage up on them on the inside, and we're just going to check this one real quick, see how much it's doing. Let's see here. Okay, and it's doing 14.6, so probably, I think that's about what they come stock, 14.5 or so maybe. They will crank up. If I'm not mistaken, these things will crank up to like 16 or 17 volts. So if you've ever seen one of these doing a crazy amount of power, like 600 watts, 550 watts, something like that, somebody's probably turned the voltage up on it, which is fine. The amp section will take it, but if you're wanting to run a radio off of it, you know, you might end up burning your radio up. Okay, so that's the function test of it. You know, decent working amp. Yes, I've seen them do more. I have seen them do less. This one's in pretty good shape. Got a fan in the back of it. They come with that, obviously. If you haven't seen one of these before, heat sink on each side. Relatively compact. A little bit of backstory about my experience with these, I guess you'd say. So 20 plus years ago, I had this same Connex, this exact same radio. Was basically just getting into radio and filling out some of the locals and stuff. Really didn't know a whole lot about it. And back in the day, this was considered you know, in the area that I lived in. Now, obviously, 20 years ago, people still had big power and were running, you know, steel tubes, 500Zs, big pillboxes, etc. But it was a lot less common in the area I lived in. If you had a Phantom, Maverick 250, something along those lines, you were considered to be a pretty big operator. And if you had one of these, you could kind of hang with those guys that were running that type of stuff. It was kind of like a newfangled thing back then. These Palomar Deluxe 35As, and I felt like I had a big amp. So how I first came across one of these, there's a local gentleman that went by the handle of Barefooted Bear. Some people watching the videos may have known him. From if you're you know, if you're a subscriber that lives in that same area that I lived in, you may have known him or may have heard of him. He was a big wheeler and dealer, traded on radio equipment all the time. Had a set of laser 400s up, and I think his big amp was like a KLV 1000, but he had one of these too. And he sold us one. We went and got it, And he just so happened to know a guy that had a watt meter for sale. What are the chances there? He had a friend that had a watt meter. So the watt meter we got was a Firebird 1000, Firebird 2000 watt meter. And we had been misinformed by him that this was like a 900 watt amp. Well, being a new Seabear, we had no idea. You know, myself and Dad, we didn't know anything about radio, so we just took him for his word. And sure enough, that Firebird meter, it showed this thing doing like 850, 900 watts. And we thought we had almost a 1,000 watt amp. Back in the day, you know, didn't know anything about it, kind of a newbie to radio. So, lesson learned, if you buy an amp from somebody and they tell you, oh, my friend's got a watt meter, you know, you might be buying one of those selling meters. But anyway, raised a lot of hell on this thing, or not this exact one, but one like it. And like I said, I may have mentioned it earlier in the radio, some people may say, oh man, you're overdriving that amp, don't drive that radio into that amp. Look, when I do videos of stuff, a lot of times I try to do the video how I would run it, okay? So sometimes you'll see I put less into an amp than what the manufacturer recommends, or, you know, the builder recommends, or whatever. Sometimes I put a little more. This is a case where I'm putting a little bit more. The only reason I'm doing this is I can tell you guys the abuse that I put one of these through when I was a young Seabear is probably unreal. I mean, I would get, I don't remember if the power supply side or the amp side, I think it was the amp side, would get so hot you could cook an egg on it. I mean, not literally, but I mean, it would get hot. It would get so hot you didn't want to touch it. And thing just kept on ticking. I mean, these are tough amps. I mean, my goodness, there's still tons of them floating around, and they're getting to be pretty old now, so they got to be, you know, pretty decent amps to stand the test of time. But that's my little backstory, my experience with having one of these, how I was introduced to one of these, and you know, I've had, I don't know how many of them, probably hundreds of them over the years, and still nice running amps. So anyway, maybe you enjoyed the story, maybe you didn't, maybe it was a waste of time, but either way, if you guys are interested in this thing, let me know. Shoot me a text, 423-299-3535, Power Deluxe 35A. Yes, it runs on 110 volts. There you guys go. Nice looking little amp here, nice running little guy. Rooster in Tennessee. Catch you guys later. See you, bye.